It looks like Shannon Sharpe just tried to electric slide his way out of a humiliation ritual trap of his own making. Because just after a lawsuit was filed that put him on leave from his ESPN job and tanked his $100 million media deal, someone leaked an alleged audio of messy Matt Barnes, yep, the same one who put 20 on 10 during the Ime Udoka situation, when he said,
"This situation in Boston is deep, it's messy, it's 100 times uglier than any of us thought."
Well, in this leaked audio that apparently was from sometime back in March, a month before the lawsuit was filed, someone who sounds like Matt Barnes is saying that he was in a group chat where Shaq was saying he was paying top dollar for info on Shannon.
I was in a group chat the other day, or actually just yesterday, and Shaq said he's paying top dollar for any information on old boy. So, I don't know if you're on that kind of time or not, but Shaq is known to throw large sums of money around, so just want to put that out there. Hey, he said, please keep it quiet. He said that Shannon did some shit back to him a while back, and he's been off him, so that's why he's doing this, but please keep his name quiet.
But shh, don't tell nobody.
So the audio seems to implicate that Shannon's current situation is not the result of his lack of discipline, but at the behest of Shaq, who Shannon started an infamous beef with in 2024, when during one of his commentaries he disagreed with something Shaq said regarding who should have been awarded MVP that season. Shannon ended up calling Shaq jealous of the current MVP winner and said that if Shaq had the work ethic that Shannon did, maybe he would have had more MVP awards, which then led Shaq to clown Shannon as a gossiping clickbaiter and reminded him that Shaq knows what Shannon did to get where he's at. Then, Shaq created a diss track and basically called Shannon's whole public demeanor fake, after which Shannon kept Shaq's name out of his mouth. But the fact that the two had beef so recently seems like it lent wings to this theory, which eventually even had Shaq poking fun at the very idea of him calling up people and asking for dirt on folks.
Hey, this is Shaq. I'm paying top dollar information. You know where Charles Barkley's at?
Yeah, I know where Charles is at. I got him.
Alright, and remember, I'm paying top dollar for all that information. Love you, boy. Hey, don't tell nobody.
Alright, one.
Alright, go.
Now granted, it's not out of the realm of possibility when you think of the other rituals that Shaq seems to have been part of, but whether someone else was paying for dirt on Shannon is not the issue here, because the only way these celebrities get caught up in these humiliation rituals is when they trap themselves with their own poor choices and arrogance. But the idea of Shannon using the same method of a leaked audio to throw the heat off his current situation, like he did with the leaked audio of him and Michelle on IG Live last year, is lazy work. And Shannon's complete lack of creativity in this has conclusively shown that there is no way his own elevator is going all the way up to the top. Because the man that recently tried to prove how culturally and socially aware he was by telling the world that he won't get on the elevator with a single woman because sometimes just the mention of impropriety is enough to sway people's opinion. Meanwhile, this man has been out here playing 50 Shades of Grey with a whole baby-faced, non-melanated alleged OF worker.
Shannon Sharpe choosing to be in a 50 Shades of Grey relationship with a non-melanated OF worker, who's over 30 years younger than him, is giving.
Lost your damn mind. You done lost your damn mind.
Now, from the audios with long pauses and inconsistent dialogue to the baiting text messages, it seems clear as day what this was. The red flags were so obvious that it's not even like he can use the excuse that this was masterminded by some baby-faced genius. Aside from the absolute creepiness and ick that he decided to ignore, even thinking about dating someone younger than his own kids, the first time she tried to share his location should have had him running so fast and far in the other direction that by the time she tried to call his name twice, the dust from his exit would have spelled out, "Shannon gone." And even if we consider the fact that Shannon may have been tackled one too many times and taken a few too many knocks to the head to see the signs, No one can count out the fact that this man got 3 warnings from the Lord. Cat Williams came at the beginning of 2024 and warned him about messing with certain women. Even used Jonathan Major's situation of him running for his life down the streets of New York after midnight. Cheryl Underwood and Monique told him to leave the youngins alone and that he needed to settle down and stop running these streets. Yet the man just sat there and giggled like it was all some kind of joke. All because he wanted to be stunning on the people who called him names or didn't want anything to do with him before he was rich. He thought moving like Leo DiCaprio or Bill Belichick was some sort of flex, when it's always been a trap, and one of the main traps that have been used for centuries.
When Shannon Sharpe plays himself because he didn't realize that trying to copy people like Leonardo DiCaprio or Bill Belichick is a trap, not a flex.
Find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have lost it.
Well,
This man sat on that Nightcap podcast and told story after story of how through the years, since the 90s when he was first drafted, God delivered him from his messiness with these women, and how he would promise God that if he delivered him from a certain situation, he would never be in it again. Situations that were not only disrespectful to the women and himself, but had him acknowledging that based on his actions, he could have been taken out so many times. Only for Shannon to turn around and break his word.
Yeah. God, if you get me out of this situation, I
Never
will
again.
get back in another one.
Yeah.
3 years later, I go back.
Then to sit and laugh about it and act like he had some sort of moral superiority or high ground when it came to the age gap between Donnell Rawlings and his baby mama is so wild that you finally realize that this level of self-sabotage is so diabolical that Shannon didn't even need to be finessed out of his seat at the table. That man darn near begged them to come and take it.
Think they finna ruin that opportunity and that chance?
Yeah.
Shit.
Ruin it, please ruin it. I'll thank you later. Ruin my chances. I'll thank you later.
So Shannon has now entered the find out season of FAFO, because on the heels of the media announcing his pending $100 million media deal for all of his podcasts, the woman has found her way to the offices of Tony Busby, who recently entered his own season of FAFO at the hands of Jay-Z. And now Shannon has been confronted with a $50 million lawsuit alleging that he not only intimidated this woman, but also physically and intimately took advantage of her. Busby did his usual song and dance of sending out a press release at the same time he files a Jane Doe lawsuit against a successful melanated man. And soon the details were all over social media for all the world to see. But Shannon released his own statement with alleged text messages between the two that painted a different picture than the allegations in the lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, Shannon approached Jane Doe in January of 2023 at a Los Angeles gym just days after her 20th birthday. And she was so intimidated by Shannon that she not only gave him her phone number, but also after several weeks of him calling her and not blocking his number, she became so intimidated by these constant phone conversations that when he invited her to come to his home, she actually showed up by herself at his mansion, where after refusing to sign an NDA, she proceeded to enter into, in her own words, a rocky relationship with him, where she would show up at his house in the evenings at least 4 times a week, engage in various acts with him, and then be kicked out of bed at 4 a.m. the following morning and told to leave. And she would comply because of Shannon's alleged controlling and manipulative behavior. Now, according to the text messages that Shannon's lawyer released, Jane Doe was allegedly on board with the controlling aspects because she asked for him to use a dog collar on her during intimacy, and also requested hardcore 50 Shades of Grey action, even going so far as to call him daddy and tell him that she wanted to be physically controlled. Busby later confirmed the veracity of these texts by saying that these text messages occurred before Shannon allegedly took advantage of Jane Doe intimately. and in response, Busby released short audio clips filled with long pauses and silences as Jane Doe accuses Shannon of manipulating her, after which Shannon refers to having his hands around Jane Doe's neck. According to the lawsuit, their arranged situationship continued in this fashion for over a year, well into the summer of 2024, which is also confirmed by the text messages from Shannon's lawyer, where Jane Doe allegedly began to request Shannon give her a big melanated baby, and allegedly told him that he would be stuck with her after he gave her a baby, and that she allegedly wanted to eat his groceries and marry him. At which point, Shannon decided to leave Los Angeles and move to Las Vegas. Jane Doe also moved to Las Vegas, and according to the lawsuit, Shannon allegedly again requested her to sign an NDA, which she refused. At which point, Shannon allegedly decided to continue the 4-time-a-week arrangement anyway. Soon after they resumed their arrangement, Shannon accidentally went live on IG while he and a woman named Michelle were engaged in various intimate acts. This live stream happened at a time when Shannon was being ruthlessly dragged on social media for his tight clothes and feminine mannerisms, spreading his legs inappropriately during the Cat Williams interview, and taking certain male acquaintances to various social functions with him. Most people thought this live stream was a publicity stunt to make people stop questioning his preferences. But when you find out that Shannon was in a whole situationship with Jane Doe, you start wondering, why wouldn't he just go public with their arrangement? Which apparently is something that Jane Doe thought as well, because in her lawsuit, she says she was humiliated when that IG Live went viral on September 11, 2024, because she thought she and Shannon were exclusive. But it gets even weirder when you find out that Michelle is also the name of a woman who filed for a restraining order against Shannon back in September of 2010, right as he was being considered for induction in the 2011 NFL Hall of Fame, only for her to drop the request just a few days after filing. And then, 13 years later, according to Jane Doe's lawsuit, this same Michelle filed her own lawsuit against Shannon in January of 2023. Yep, the very same month Shannon met Jane Doe at the gym. And according to Busby, Michelle's lawsuit contains almost the exact same allegations as his own client's new lawsuit. So anyway, according to the lawsuit, after Jane Doe found out she and Shannon weren't exclusive, she confronted him for cheating on her and began ignoring his calls and texts before feeling so harassed by his constant attempts to get in touch with her that less than a month later, on October 6, 2024, she goes to the gym. And when Shannon shows up and allegedly verbally intimidates her in a public place, she was so scared that she got in his car with him and took him to her place so they could talk privately. And this is when he allegedly first took intimate advantage of her. Then, according to the text messages that Shannon's attorney released, January 1st, 2025, Jane Doe allegedly sent Shannon a text message saying that she knew he missed her glutes and haggled for $25,000 for each cheek. After which, according to the lawsuit, Shannon allegedly reached out to Jane Doe by phone again, and even though she did not want to have anything to do with him after what happened in October, once he told her he had a combined Christmas and birthday gift for her, she invited him to her house again, at which point she alleges there was a repeat of the October allegations. She then texts Shannon the next day, referring to what happened and saying no means no, and Shannon asked for them to speak over the phone. Shannon's lawyer alleges that the relationship ended on January 2nd, 2025, after Jane Doe asked for the $25,000 for each cheek. And then, the next month, she allegedly showed Shannon an edited 30-second video clip that made it seem like Shannon took intimate advantage of her, at which point Shannon and Jane Doe began settlement negotiations, where in order to stop from being humiliated by his proclivities, that according to Shannon included every stereotype you could think of between a melanated man with a non-melanated woman, Shannon offered to pay Jane Doe $10 million, which she seemed agreeable to. But After news of his possible $100 million payday went viral, Jane Doe allegedly decided
yesterday's price is not today's price.
And she and Busby filed this $50 million lawsuit. Shannon and his lawyer have announced plans to countersue. But Shannon's complete stupidity from start to finish has people everywhere shaking their heads and wondering how dumb one person could be. Because the red flags were all there from jump. And according to Shannon's own dating stories on Nightcap, where he has had car windows busted and tires flattened on at least 6 separate occasions because of his dealings with women, there were even times when men would show up with AKs and sawed-offs while he was at these women's houses, either sleeping or undressing. And because they recognized him as Shannon Sharpe, pro NFL player, they let him leave. These were occasions where, in his own words, he bargained that if God saved him, he would never get himself in another situation like that again, only to find himself in the same situations 3 years later. Then, to top that off, at one point, Shannon even had a woman pull a piece on him and press it to his forehead in the midst of dirty talk because of something wild he said, something that he couldn't even remember. The woman told him she realized he had been playing with her this whole time and told him to get his ish and leave and to never contact her again. Only to have the woman call him out of the blue over 10 years later and apologize and say that she was wrong. She had been dealing with something. At which point Shannon resumed his intimate relationship with her. Just like it says in the Bible, a dog returning to his own vomit. And just like the Bible says in Romans 1:28, when Shannon kept disregarding all the times the Lord delivered him from situations of his own making, ignored the ways of escape that the Lord made for him and the messages sent directly to him to repent, now Shannon's own mind has turned against him so that his own actions constantly bring forth his own humiliation and destruction. Self-sabotage. Now, how do you think this situation is going to unfold? Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.